You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.
And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market. From unusual activity alerts to market updates and trading strategies. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the option block. With your hosts, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, Mark Sebastian from optionpit.com, Mike Tusaw from knowyouroptionsinc.com, and John Grigas from Options Express.
All right, everybody, welcome to the 800th, yes, I said that correctly, the 800th episode, spectacular here for the Option Block. If you're saying to yourself, man, that sounded a little bit different, that intro, that sounded a little bit old school, you are correct. That is how the show used to sound 800 or so episodes ago. Back in the early days, Know Your Options Inc., all that fun stuff, all these things that have changed. Such a big. I haven't had Mr. Grigas on in quite a while. He was on for one of our other reunion episodes recently. Not for this one. We'll have to get him back on again one of these days. But it's been all sorts of fun stuff here. So we're gonna keep that theme rolling throughout the show. It's 800 episodes. It's all because of you guys. So we're gonna make it all about you guys this episode. So it should be fun. And joining me to help me do just that, it's appropriate we got most of the old school crew here. Starting off, let's go out to the hinterlands of Maine. Mr. Rock Lobster, Andrew Giovinazzi. Mr. Rock Lobster, do you remember around what level? Was it around the 100s you joined? When did you first become a part of the Option Block Spectacular, sir?
I think I was definitely within 100. You were around like a year. A year? Probably, yeah. Maybe it was 100. The 100th. I think it couldn't have been more than a year because it was like 2000 and I'm going to say 10. 2010.
Oh, well, that would have been, the show started in 2010. So I know, so I remember.
Because I started with Mark and I took, I'm going to say 2011 then.
I remember Mark had you on as like a guest from the, I think it was the Street HQ. And I said, who's this scrub you're beaming in from the street headquarters here? I want no part of him. And yet somehow I've been stuck with him all these years since. So there you go, Mr. Rock Lobster, part of an institution. How does it feel?
It feels good. You know what? I guess I'm like one of those mussels in the ocean. You know, it latches onto a rock. It just will not let go, much to your chagrin.
No matter how much you pay someone to try to scrape it off, it continues to cling like a barnacle. You are the barnacle of the option block.
Scraping tool does not help.
Yes. All right, and also joining us, someone who's also been with us pretty much since the early days. In the early days, you may remember, listeners, it was a rotating. It was Auntie Mike, a.k.a. Mr. Mike Kavanaugh, also from Know Your Options, Inc., and then Uncle Mike Tusaw, those double mics, also from Know Your Options, Inc. Uncle Mike, welcome to the 800th episode Spectacular. Wow, how things have changed since the Know Your Options, Inc. day, sir.
You know, it's funny because I remember episode 1. I remember actually meeting about this show. It was me, you, an official from Options Express, the company that eventually got bought out, as well as Mike Kavanaugh and Sebastian. Actually, I still remember that meeting that we had about this show and what we were going to do with it. And I was just thinking about it, I'm like, wow, a lot has changed since back then. So episode 1 to 800, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a great ride.
Yeah,
the ride will continue.
Exactly. That's kind of how the show kind of came to fruition, because those old OX, crew way back, they had been pursuing me for a long time. to do a show on our network, and for whatever reason, we could never make it work. They wanted certain guys to be on it. They just didn't have time, or it was hard getting people who were directly OX affiliated to be on the show. Then I came up with the idea, hey, what about these crazy mics? They're kind of OX affiliated with, the Know Your Options Inc., but still separate enough so they can kind of speak without getting you guys in trouble. And that was kind of, that's the straw that ended up getting the whole ball rolling here. To this show that has been through many iterations, many great partners in the space. Of course, OX, eventually Schwab. We had the Viceroy on. We had that brief dalliance with the Options House, and then E-Trade and all the other fun stuff. And now fast forward to 2019, and we are joined by our new crew holding down the Fidelity hot seat here. In this case, we are joined by Trey, good old Trey Jarrell from the Active Trader Strategy Desk. I won't ask you how good it's been to be on 800 shows, but still, it's got to be kind of fun, Trey, to come in on a show that's that's kind of become an institution now. It's been around for a while.
It's been a blast, to be honest. I remember my first show like it was only a month ago here, I think so. But very honored to be part of the 800th episode, and certainly been, although it's only been about a month and a half now, definitely been a blast, and I've enjoyed participating with you guys.
A month. It's amazing you can even think back that long. It's so far into the primordial ooze of history. All right. Let's keep that tradition alive. Let's keep that little bit of sonic nostalgia alive as well. We're going to get to a bunch of your questions. Don't worry. First, I'm going to kick things off with an old school version of the trading block.
The trading block.
Yes, in case you haven't figured it out, listeners, we're playing old school, the way this show used to sound way back in the early episodes. That was our old trading block transition. Kind of fun. A little bit different there. Of course, the trading block, where we have now for 800 episodes broken down what is trading out there on the old markets. And now we're coming into today's session, a bit of a mixed bag here. A lot of earnings are weighing on the market for better and for worse. We're seeing the Dow leading the laggards, actually off about 0.5%. S&P kind of unched up slightly, up about 0.1% or so. Not quite a huge day for them. And the NASDAQ up about 0.3% out there. Our old friend VIX kind of languishing around that 13 handle, up around 1/4 of a handle from where it was last time we all gathered here together, but still not exactly moving and shaking in either direction, kind of locking around that 13 handle. So interesting stuff out there. Let's go around the horn. Let's go back the opposite way of the way we started. Let's start with Mr. Trey. What is lighting things up? What are Fidelity clients slinging and talking about today, Trey?
Yeah, so earnings, and more earnings. So the theme of the day and the week here, to say the least. So looking through the top 5 orders by Fidelity customers, I think a few of these are you guys would definitely be able to guess if I asked you. Rounding out number 1 here in orders by Fidelity customers today was Facebook. Big jump here today, up about 10 points, 1080 as it stands right now at 193.40. Had a nice healthy earnings beat, 189 versus 163. Nice jump on the stock here. Thought this level on the chart was pretty interesting, around 193, 194. Had some support and some resistance points at this same level back in 2018. Looks like the option markets are like in Facebook here as well. 506,000 calls to just under 200,000 puts. So, very heavy on that call put ratio here right now. But certainly not one I think that would be surprises in the top 10. Fidelity customers kind of taking the opposite approach on Facebook, more sells than buys here actually. So maybe taking the opportunity for some profit taking here as it stands. Other couple of ones that were out there, we had Tesla, no surprise there, coming in at 2. Microsoft, which reported yesterday as well, keeps bouncing near that $1 trillion market cap. So pretty interesting, keeping an eye on that. Amazon with earnings today in the top 5 as well. But one other interesting name, this is one that I don't recall ever seeing on the list here, but might be an interesting one to talk about here, was Xilinx, ticker XLNX. So they are a semiconductor company, reported earnings here yesterday, and almost in line. They came in at 95 cents, adjusted at 94. Consensus was right at 94, but the stock taking a big hit, down 22 points right now. Stock's trading at 116.88. But interesting chart, right? Until yesterday's close, they're up about 118% on the year. So had this, huge run up, but obviously given a pretty substantial portion of that back here right now. The option statistics on this was pretty interesting here as well. Not a big name. Looks like the ADV usually about 17,000. They traded 74,000 so far today. So a little bit of an uptick in the options paper on it. Pretty heavy to the call side here, about 46,000 to 28,000 on puts. Kind of interesting though, the call traders, right, appear to be pretty heavily favoring the sell side, right? So you've got about 15,000 call sellers to about 8,000 call buyers here right now. So thought that was kind of an interesting name here. A large company that doesn't come up too often, but certainly with today's or yesterday's earnings, Fidelity customers had an interest, popped up at number 3. Fidelity customers, on the buy side of that one here as well. About 73% buys versus 27% sells. So kind of taking that contrarian view, perhaps, here on that stock today.
Yeah, Xilinx, not a name we talk about a lot here anymore. That kind of harkens me back to my early days on the SIBO back in the go.com 90s, where we talk about a lot of these names, Xilinx and the CMGIs and a bunch of others there. This is obviously a tech name. On the hardware side, listeners, also a semi name as well, but not one we talked about a lot here on the show recently, because you're right, it hasn't really been making a lot of waves that would attract the options audience. But today, taking it on the chin, off 23 handles, about 16.5%. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and say maybe earnings not looking too good here for good old Xilinx. I'm gonna look at it really quickly while we're chatting here. So let's toss it to, let's go to Uncle Mike, sir. Let's go back, continuing the way we went around the other way. Uncle Mike, sir, what is catching your eye here today for episode 800?
Well, I mean, a couple things. First, just out of curiosity, can anyone say, and I don't know off the top of my head, can anyone say what the S&P 500 closed at on episode 1? That would be an interesting question for any of our listeners, if they can chat that in for us, or just say that, if they
6.
can do that real quick.
It was 6.
About that. That seems about right. So yeah, a couple things on my docket that I'm looking at. Of course, Facebook going way higher. 3M getting pounded as well today. Of course, we have we have just a lot of things going on in the earnings world per se. So we're in the midst of earnings season. It's really exciting to not talk about something macro at this stage. Overall, I think it looks like the market really doesn't want to show its hand from the grand scheme of it, just because of the fact that the S&P is up 1 point for right now. So I think it's waiting to see what we have coming from more earnings announcements. And I think just over the course of the next few weeks, I'm not seeing a lot of resounding myths coming. I think that by the next few weeks, I mean, maybe the next week or so, I think we're going to get a little bit more movement in the marketplace. I'm actually surprised we didn't get a little bit more today, but I think it's just more because of the fact that we had a mix of both good and bad for earnings in terms of being up and down. So that's what I'm seeing at this stage. Curious to see where we go with this as more earnings progress, because I really don't think we're going to be sitting around this area forever. The other thing to mention is that we are just below the all-time highs in the marketplace, and so it's going to be a tough nut to crack getting over it.
I'm looking here at good old Xilinx while you're talking, Uncle Mike, and as you might expect, off 16%. Puts are the top trades of the day, but not huge. Like 1,250 of the June 105 puts going up for $1. Actually, towards the bid, but again, things are kind of fluid out there, so they could be rocking and rolling and trying to get that off, and they got a good fill, or in perhaps this case, if they're selling not so great, and also the May quarter puts, 125 puts, doing about 1,000 contracts as well, so a decent number of puts, but actually overall, it's calls leading the dance, which is kind of interesting. As of now, close to 50,000 calls on the tape, and only about 28,000 puts, so of the 75,000, 2/3 calls, which is surprising. You don't expect that given a day like this with such a biased underlining or underlying, I should say. But there we go. Mr. Rock Lobster, sir, what is catching your eye on this episode 800, and what are the crazies up to in the pit chat? What are they watching?
Let's see. Tesla being kind of what's weird is no matter how bad Tesla news gets, it doesn't seem to matter. I mean, it's down a little bit today. Musk only has $2.5 billion in cash left. Is he going to do the 3-card Monty again? So, and actually, I'm grumpy because I tried getting selling a call spread yesterday into the close, and I was greedy and I didn't get it. So, but my clients did, so they're happy. Like, that's too bad. That was a nice idea, Andrew. It was a short call spread and a downside put fly, actually, which is looking like it could make a lot of money. But anyway, that is one thing. The 3M was another one that we looked at. The put flies looked very cheap in 3M this morning. We did that in the chat room. So stuff like that where, and they're kind of generating a little bit of dollars right now. So those type of trades, and generally in a bull market, those are probably not bad, little shorts to have. And we had a kind of a pop in VIX today for I didn't quite understand what the reason was. Like the Dow was down because of 3M, I guess. Mark reminded me that 3M is a big Dow component. So you had that. So that was kind of the initial shock this morning. And then we had VIX traded 14. And I don't think the SPX was down more than 6 handles, maybe. So that was what I would view as an unsustainable VIX action. I was actually trying to get put a trade on for my vol newsletter to, buy some VXXB puts basically with a slight hedge. And I just missed everything. It's like one of these days or 24-hour periods where I don't do anything that I want to do. But that was what I would call a short and unsustainable push in VIX because you're not getting a move in the SPX and the vol is going up. Okay, it's going to move, and then it doesn't move, and then they crush VIX, right? Or they crush vol. So my guess is we're waiting for earnings. Microsoft earnings were pretty huge. It's, I think, at an all-time high. So the idea is we're watching this. I think we're just waiting really for Google and Apple to come out, and they're probably going to be pretty good because technology looks pretty good. And the Qs are probably going to trade at an all-time high. We're 2.5 handles away from an all-time high. So I think even the SPX is at an all-time high right now, but it's darn close. So I think the idea is we'll probably keep doing more of the same. But we're not getting the super lows in VIX. We're not getting the 11 handle we had in September. That trade thing is still out there, although the market seems to have priced the earnings from tech is going to be good. The trade war is going to be done. There doesn't seem to be any impeachment stuff on the horizon. So just stuff like that is there. It's pricing in, let's call it a rosy scenario right now. So I think that's the reason why you haven't seen VIX drop to low lows. It's pretty low. It just isn't getting to that rock bottom area yet. And probably won't at least until we get the last big slew of earnings out in a week or so. So that's what you get. There's some short-term opportunities. This is where, Tesla drops for a couple of days. It looks awful. And then Elon Musk, pulls something out of his rabbit's hat and the stock probably will rally. I don't know if it's going to rally the next couple of days, but maybe next week he comes up with some sort of magical, I think he said he was getting into the insurance business.
That's sexy. That'll get the analysts excited. That's as sexy as it can be, right?
Trade at a jillion times PE. I mean, is there one insurance company that's worth $50 billion? I don't think so. But listen, all I know is that guy has started 3 companies and he's made a lot of money doing it, and I have not. I've tried to start companies and haven't only made a couple of bucks. So if anybody can do it, make $1 billion in insurance, it's that guy.
it's funny because he had talked about Musk. This was going to be the quarter they might finally turn the ship, right? Make an actual profit this quarter, and instead they turn in some of the worst numbers they've turned out. I'm just looking at some of the different takes on this. Here's a piece out of Market Watch quoting analysts who like to be quotable. This guy coming out of Wedbush, Dan Ives, saying this earnings were a debacle. What did he say here? In 20 years of covering tech stocks on the street, we view this quarter as one of the top debacles we have ever seen. While Musk and company, in an episode out of the Twilight Zone, act as if demand and profitability will magically return to the Tesla story. So there you go. There's a guy who wants to get his words quoted out there, and it worked. CBS picking it up. Hey, we're talking about it, so I guess it worked for him. So he's obviously cutting his ratings. Tesla taking it on the chin today. We saw it's lighting it up in the pit chat. It's lighting it up over there at Fidelity. It's lighting it up pretty much everywhere. Off right now, nearly 10 handles, $9.50, or about 3 2/3% or so, right around the 249 level out there. So interesting stuff. They of course had earnings yesterday. Let's look at the earnings move reports and earnings move results reports. Remember, you can find these all for yourself for free over there at theoptionsinsider.com, courtesy of our friends at Oratz. Let's see here. Tesla, there it is. Tesla, so coming into the bell of yesterday, right before its report, it was trading a close around 258.66, so a wee bit north of where it is right now. They were pricing in about $20, $20.05, so a fairly robust straddle. What they got was $6 to the downside. Again, this is coming into the open, so if you held on a little bit longer, we're off 9.5, so nearly $10, nearly half of that straddle. So it's looked a little bit better for the premium buyers. Not good though, but better. And for the premium sellers, you actually got the rare moment where Tesla underperformed its straddle. So you're a happy camper out there. Some other names popping off here this week. There's been a bunch. This is kind of the hot time. WWE, we don't get to talk about them a lot, but they had earnings before the bell today, actually. They came into it 98.5 in their stock, and they were pricing in $4.10. Apparently, the wrestling, the body slams, and all the pile drivers, all that stuff, not lighting it up because they're taking it on the chin today. Coming into the report, they were off nearly $9. As of right now, they're off nearly 14, or $84. So they blew the doors off their straddle. If in the first blush, they were 2x it. Now they're over 3x their straddle, coming in on 4x that straddle to the downside. So apparently, the heyday of WWE, at least for the near term, is over. I mean, they already had the rights deals. They had some of the issues with Saudi Arabia. People didn't like that. And then on top of it, maybe, people have seen that they peaked out and how much they could squeeze from this in the near term. Clearly, it was up around 100. Now it's down to about 85. So taking it a little bit down. Still, it's up ridiculously over the past year. I mean, a year ago it was trading less than $40, 39.5. So it's still up well from those days. Maybe a little bit more to go there, but still interesting stuff out there in the realm of body slams. Microsoft, good old softy. Coming into their earnings, which are on the 24th as well. They were at 125, pretty much even. They were pricing in 430. Remember, for a long time, listeners, we said Microsoft was the most reliable premium right kind of in the business. It was, you didn't get a lot for it, but you kept what you sold because it never did anything. That was pretty much the case for about a decade. The last year or so, year and a half, that hasn't really been the case. Let's see if it held up this time. Microsoft, they priced in 430. They delivered 630. So once again, not the case this time. They're actually delivering a little bit more. And right now here, as we're partway through showtime here, Microsoft up about 4.25, 129.30. So interesting stuff here. Still up about 4 and change. So yeah, coming in closer in line to where that straddle was. So hopefully if you had some premium, you got out of it quick. Let's see any other interesting names that were popping off here. There's quite a few. This week we got some after the bell today. Obviously, we got Amazon and Intel after the bell. We'll get to those in a bit. Earlier this week, of course, we had Facebook. We saw Trey mentioning those. We had Tesla. We had Boeing, Chipotle, PayPal, a lot of names. Twitter earlier in the week as well. Let's see here really quickly. Also, let's break down before we get to all your fun questions. Let's do a real quick rundown of what's lighting it up outside of Tesla. By the way, Tesla, it's interesting. Let's see what's lighting it up really quick. We talked about Tesla earlier. Let's see what is the case out there in terms of trades du jour. Right now, we're seeing puts leading the dance, as you might expect. About 250,000 puts versus 178,000 calls, which returns us here to what is lighting up the tape overall today. Let's go to the top 10 equity options. And right about now, Facebook still leading the charge. 700,000, number one. Number two, Tesla. So all the way down to number 2. Still looking pretty good. Any other day probably would have been number 1 with 425,000 contracts. Today, Facebook beating it to the punch. Number 3, Microsoft, 380,000 contracts. Number 4, Apple, falling all the way down to number 4, a mere 211,000 contracts. Number 5, Disney, about 205 on the tape. Number 6, AMD, a $142. Number 7, Twitter, $131. Number 8 and number 9, a tie between AT&T and Snap, both with a $122 on the tape, and rounding out the top 10, Bank of America, 119,000. The most biased paper is, actually, it's close. Facebook and Twitter are both, and Bank of America are both at or around 73% to the call side. So actually, I take it back. Disney, 82% to the call. So Disney taking the lead there in terms of most biased flow. Coming into Showtime, VIX had about 350,000 contracts. ADV is pretty paltry, though. 463,000 contracts, so that's shy of 500,000. That's pretty light. We're getting into some early seasonality of VIX here where it's not going to want to do a lot, apparently, at least volume-wise. And that seems to be the case, even though today, looking pretty robust. About 350,000 contracts coming into this part of the show. 1.2 or so million for SPY. ADV is a little bit about 1 million north of that. SPX, about 575,000. ADV, a little bit north of 1 million. The Qs, 435,000. And today, or actually the ADV is about 613,000. And the Russell, tearing it up today, 232,000 coming into Showtime. 301 is the ADV. Chances are it's probably going to beat that today. So action in the small caps. There's also action from you guys, the listeners. We're going to eschew the old school, odd block and everything else. Maybe I'll play some of those transitions for you, though, because it's kind of fun. Maybe we'll do a quick sonic nostalgia tour. Then we'll get into your mail block.
The odd block. The strategy block. Now it's time to empty the mailbag and see what our listeners have to say. It's the mail block.
I don't know. There's some good ones in there. There's some gems. I missed that kind of old odd block with the laugh. That was a good one. Uncle Mike, do you miss that old strategy block? I told my guy to come up with something for the strategy block. That's what he came up with. So there you go.
Yeah, I remember that with the strategy block, but I don't remember the evil laugh with the odd block. I remember the sound of it, but I don't remember the evil laugh.
There you go, the selective memory, sir.
I think that was back in the days when we couldn't hear it. You would just play it, and then we couldn't hear it on our side out, from what I remember.
I think you might be right. Yeah, we used to do it, obviously, live to tape. We didn't have the advanced setup that we have now, and then we'd cut in the transitions afterwards. So you'd have to use your imagination. So if you listen to it afterward, you could hear it, but not live. Now I play it for you guys, so you guys can play too, and of course, we broadcast it live. Now people can listen to it live that way as well. That's obviously an addition we've had for the last 100 or so episodes, I think. So many changes have come along since then. We were just talking Tesla. Let's keep it going here. Our question of the week this week is Tesla related. And let's see, what were we questioning? Here we go. It was coming into this week. We've talked a lot about the quote-unquote mystery puts. I think we have a question about those a little bit later. What we just like calling them mystery puts. There's many reasons why they exist. But in general, Tesla open interest on the options side still continues to be dominated by these far out-of-the-money puts. Most of them long-term, but some of them closer than you probably would think. The lion's share of it is, of course, at the 100 strike and below. In fact, Mr. Meatball last show talking about doing I believe it was a 10-5 1x2 out there. So a lot of people playing in those far out-of-the-money puts. Many reasons for this, but we ask you a very simple question this week. Given all this paper flow at the 100 strike or below, a lot of it by Jan expiration, we thought, do you guys think Tesla will be below 100 by Jan expiration? Very, very simple question. Let's go around the horn here and ask you guys before I reveal what our audience is thinking. Let's start with Trey. Trey, sir, do you have a vote on this? If so, you can. And B, more importantly, what do you think our audience is voting? Yes or no?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think the audience will probably lean towards above 100. Looking back at Tesla, and I think we mentioned this earlier. It doesn't seem what the news is. It's still somehow keeps managing to hang on. So looking at the chart right now, it's at the bottom of this 2-year range, still holding right now. See if it breaks out. If it does, it's got a ton of support along the way. It was in this same kind of 2-year range. Remember back in 2014 through almost 3 years, 2017, where it seemed to stick to that low of 180. So it just seems, it gets into one range and gets stuck in another. So, 100 might be a little far-fetched, but, we never know. Certainly with, Elon could always come out, could be some new news to take it down. But, from a technical standpoint or probability standpoint, probably a little bit of a stretch here at this point.
So you come down the no side of the camp. Okay, I got you. Let's go to Rock Lobster. Mr. Rock Lobster, if you have a vote, have at it. And then B, more importantly, what do you think our crazies out there in the audience are voting?
This is a tough one because I've always thought it should be trading below 100, but since I've always been wrong, I mostly ignore it, except for every once in a while when things are going nutty in it. So I would say the crazies are saying, I think it's going to touch 100 within a year. But I don't think the crazies think that it's going to touch 100.
So you think by Jan expiration, it will be below 100. So your personal answer is yes, but the audience answer you're saying is no. Interesting.
Correct.
Interesting. A little bit of a dichotomy coming out of here from the Rock Lobster. So maybe you are loading up on some of those. Are you down with that 1x2 Mark was talking about?
It's a long time to wait for the 1x2. I'm not that patient.
Yeah, 10-5. That's a lot can happen between 10 and 5, shall we say. But interesting stuff. So, Mr. Rock Lobster, voting no for you guys, but yes personally. Interesting. Uncle Mike, sir, we got 1 yes, 1 no, at least for personal votes, and 2 no's for the audience. How do you come down, sir?
I think it's going to stay above 100, but I think the audience will agree. I think it's going to stay above 100 for the time being. It for sure could. I'm full disclosure. I am not putting my money where my mouth is, but I think they're going to find a way to keep it. I think it's going to stay above 100 at this point.
Yeah, I think. I certainly see why the Rock Lobster would think that, and I've been naysaying Tesla for a while, and it has continued to defy all of that and soar to the stratosphere. These days, maybe not so much. But 100 does seem like perhaps a bridge too far by Jan expiration. Hey, crazier things have happened. I would not be surprised. I would put my personal vote in the no camp as well. Let's see what you guys are there as well as of showtime. We've got a couple days left, listeners. If you haven't voted, listening to the podcast, at Options is the place to go. 68%, so a little bit north of 2/3 saying no, only 32% saying yes. That's surprising because I know there's a lot of Tesla bulls, or I should say Tesla bears in our audience. I thought there'd be a little bit more for the yes, but still roughly 1/3. That's not bad. Get out there, make your opinions known. Let's see what we got from another. Here's a Tesla-related question from the Arbitar. Sounds like a sci-fi name, Arbitar. I like that. He wants to know, what's the real reason you think so many people, are gobbling up these crazy Tesla puts? Well, we talked about this before. We've talked about it for many times on our old mystery puts on the 50 strike. We talked about it with our buddy there, Saqib, who ended up doing a big, I think, piece was for Reuters, one of those about the mystery puts. And we've kind of gotten this Tesla downside put speculation ball off and running. So if you hate it, blame us here on this show. It's our baby. But in general, we've talked about a lot of different reasons. People have sent me interesting analyses of why this is the case. In general, there's a couple of different things we blamed. In general, one is, of course, the CDS market is very rich. These are, of course, credit default swaps. People are out there obviously buying them and also selling them. And if you're selling a credit default swap to a customer out there, you're probably getting a pretty rich premium to do so because the chances of probabilities of some sort of default are fairly high. In turn, they're high enough to be able to, if you want to hedge that risk in the open market, these puts are a way you could do it. And they may seem rich to you, but compared to what you're getting to sell some of these things, maybe not. Obviously, it's worth it in the end. If you could sell someone the probability of Tesla pretty much going out for a whole huge chunk of change and then buy that back in the broad listed options market for a lot less, you probably would do that. So that's probably what a lot of people are doing. Also, people who have some broad credit portfolios out there, they probably have a vested interest in seeing some of that get hedged away. So there's a couple of different things. I know, Mr. Meatball, you guys have been Mr. Meatball, I apologize. Mr. Rock Lobster. It wouldn't be the 800th episode if I didn't mess up one of your names. Mr. Rock Lobster. I know you guys have been talking about this. What do you think is driving all this mystery put paper in Tesla?
Well, we have speculated on this long and hard. I think the more debt they put out, the more people are going to want to insure it. And you know how the CDS guys, they charge a lot more for insuring their debt than probably the people in the options market. So that's why they come and bid up all those puts. So I think anyway, that's what people are looking for. So when I say my below 100 thing, it's like I say that, and that just letting everybody know I've been totally wrong. The fact that stock should not be trading at the level it is right now. But I think there are people, though, that are seriously taking short bets against this company. And the reality is stock is too expensive. And, you buy 2,000 puts and you're going to get what you want. And it can be a relatively, for a fund, right, a lower risk because at least their dollar's capped. Because starting to short it at $100 and watch it go to 360 was no fun. So, and I just think that's why. I think there's short interest in here, and I think there's a reason because it's a little bit of a shell game as far as how much money that they can make versus all the breakneck development they try to do. Elon probably wins. That's what I'm saying. Even if it dipped under 100, it probably doesn't stay there for very long because it will find at that level it's $25 billion, and somebody would just buy it just for the technology probably. So it's one of those things where it's hard to believe it goes too far below there. But I think some funds are definitely trying to load the boat on these puts for sure.
Anyone else on this? Trey, Uncle Mike, got any thoughts for our listener here? Or should we keep rolling?
I agree with Andrew. I agree with Andrew. I think it is just primarily people looking to insure the debt.
Trey, any thoughts, or should we keep rolling?
Let's keep rolling. I agree with those guys. Seems like something that far out, right?
Yeah.
Hedging makes the most sense. So.
We do have a lot of cues to get to here on our 800th episode. Spectacular. It's all about you folks. You guys have the reason we're still going all this time. So we want to make sure you guys get some love. Let's see here. Let's next here. Chicken Lover. He wants to know, do you know if there's any way you can tell if options are being opened or closed intraday? Live options open interest. I talked about this with Nick. I wanted to get it on here as well because Nick obviously does the data on TWTR. So he has this thing. I'm going to be talking to the CEO of OCC next week at the Options Industry Conference. I'll make sure I put this to him as well. This is the question we get a lot still. People want this. It makes sense, especially on the retail side. You're used to bam, bam, bam. You get filled in a fraction of a second, and then you turn around, you have to wait a whole 24 hours to get your open interest updated. I agree with you. It does seem like an antiquated relic of a bygone era. And so there are many reasons for this. The back-end infrastructure is not really in place to do this. OCC has to have a huge technological overhaul to make that happen. There also are institutional players who do not want this. They like having that nice day or so of mystery that they can kind of disguise their actions. So there are forces arrayed against you here on the retail side that don't want this to happen, which may make me think it may take a while. I think we'll eventually, and obviously some trades you don't know. It's hard to reconcile. So what I've heard is some interesting suggestions around maybe, instead of instantaneous, maybe more like a midday update. I'll have to get the Flowmaster on here too, Henry. I'm going to talk to him at OIC. He might have some thoughts about this as well. But in general, I've heard some maybe speeding up some of the updates. You get a midday OI update and then maybe an end of day. That maybe go a little bit of a way. I think we'll probably be heading towards that before we go towards any sort of live OI update. Some of these trades, it's a little bit more opaque than you might think. I don't know, Trey, is this a question you guys get a lot on the strategy desk? We get it a lot here. Do you guys get this a lot? People want their OI in real time?
It comes up every once in a while. Yeah, I definitely could see the the interest in clients having that. Our conversations generally go around, looking at the next day on it here. The downside, right? It would ruin some of the speculation and fun that all of us have. Looking at some of these trades here throughout the day on it. But yeah, absolutely. I think it would be certainly a cool thing overall to include.
All right, let's keep on rolling. So a lot of questions to get to. Here's a fun one, actually. We had mentioned this on the Crypto Rundown show, but it came to this show, and it speaks to the dark primordial ooze days of this show. So it's appropriate to have it here on this program as well. Let's see. It came from BTCVIX, and he wrote in, way back in 2012 and 2013, I started listening to Longo and the rest of the crew. Well, hello to the rest of my crew. I'm pretty sure I am on record at some point asking the first Bitcoin question late in 2013. Obviously, I chose to stick with my taste in the volatility world because he chose his handle to be BTCVIX. And he said, nice to see you guys are doing a crypto segment now. How the times have changed in the last 5 to 6 years since I asked that question. I'll have to try and catch up on the podcast. And then to his credit, he went out and actually dug up his question. And I thought I had it here, and now here it is. He went and found his question, and he posted it for us to see. He said, I actually found the episode dating back to June 6th of 2013, so D-Day, under his old handle of Bitcoin Bravo, when he first asked a Bitcoin question for us and for me and the panel to answer, and he sent a link here, which is funny, and sure enough, here it is in the show notes, episode 273 from way back in 2013. Here's the question from Bitcoin Bravo. He wanted to know about us hedging Bitcoin mining investments with, at the time, were network difficulty futures, because there really were no listed Bitcoin futures. So well done to you, Bitcoin. I mentioned you on crypto. I gave you some love on Twitter. You get pride of place. You have the data backing you up, so well done there. You went and found your actual question and have proof of it. By the way, that's a good suggestion out there. If you've been listening since the dark primordial ooze days of this show, let us know. Send in maybe hey, I've been listening since this episode. This is when I discovered the show. That'd be kind of fun to hear. Fun ones. If you have proof, if you could show a screenshot like our friend did, maybe the person who sends in the earliest one, maybe we'll have a fun prize. I'm going to bankrupt myself with all these crazy prizes we've been giving out lately between the broker madness and everything else. We give out a lot of fun prizes, but hey, we'll do some more. So if you want to send in the proof that you've been listening for a while, and maybe like a screenshot or a review or something you left way back on the platform that you've been listening, let us know. With the earliest one, maybe we'll have a fun prize for you as well. But this guy, BTCVIX, he gets pride of place. And he asked it on the option block, which is kind of funny because this was not a crypto show. But I told him, I said, hopefully you went out and bought all the Bitcoin you could when you wrote that question, and then you sold it at the end of 2017. And if you did that, you are a very, very wealthy individual right now. But either way, I love those old school nods here to the show. Let's keep on rolling here. We've got, so many. We asked you guys last week, you guys loved our Broker Madness Palooza, our tournament. A lot of you guys played. We had record turnout, gave away a bunch of great prizes, smart speakers, some exclusive gear from Land's End, Options Insider gear, of course, smart home setup, and even a sweet tablet. So you asked you guys, what else would you like to see us do on that front? Maybe have some other contests or polls or things like that. Euro20, he suggested we have a sell puts-a-thon. I didn't know how that would work. I said, what is it? The person who sells the most puts would win. And he said the most profitable would win. Get too greedy, and well, we all know what happens after that. So there we go. This is a suggestion for a sell puts-a-thon. Our buddy Neil Wales, who won Mark's book, hopefully Mark eventually sent it out to him with his spot-on prediction of where the VIX would close for 2018. Kind of airy, actually. So hopefully Mark got him out. I think he's off in New Zealand or something, so it was a bit of a heft. He suggested, when will Tesla finally bite the dust? We kind of did that this week, so he added a corollary. It says, does Tesla have to die to live? That could be the poll. So interesting stuff from you guys. Anything we put out Tesla-wise, you guys go crazy for. So maybe those will be suggested. I like what do you guys think of his idea for a sell puts-a-thon contest? I don't know how we could do it. We have to have some pretty clear rules. But what do you guys think of that?
I've never heard of a sell puts-a-thon, so I love the idea. But then if we go down in value in the marketplace, is he just trying to get us to sell all these puts so he can buy them? That's the conspiracy theorist in me.
Look at you putting on your tinfoil hat here for episode 800, accusing our listeners of using us for vile ends, sir.
I just realized that might be the first time in 800 episodes that Tusa actually put on a tinfoil hat. Normally, he's
not known for that. You're right. All these years in St. Charles have brought him to the dark side of conspiracy theories, clearly.
many
That must
Skippy
be it.
delicious
That must
euros.
be it.
I don't know. Trey, does that? I'm guessing that makes the hairs on the back of your strategy desk stand up, and you hear something like a sell puts-a-thon, sir.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, don't worry, we won't make
your
you.
outlook first. So, if you want to do like a paper trading game, you got to include all strategies, right? Don't not just leave it at one, but it would be interesting either way.
That would certainly resonate with the core of our audience who likes to live on the dark side, shall we say. Well, here you go, Trey. This will cheer you up, Trey. This will put a smile on your face. You've only been on the show for like a month. You've already got a bunch of mail just for you. So I don't know what's going on. You're clearly resonating here. This comes from, once again, the Joe and Linda duo. They said, "This is Joe of the Joe and Linda duo. Thank you for answering my questions. Took me by surprise hearing our name on the Option Block show when Trey answered a question for me. And then with Brian also on the Option Playbook show. Thanks so much." So there you go, Trey. Look at that. How much love can you get in your first freaking month here?
Pretty excited about it. I didn't get the cool nickname like the Last Emperor, but these client accolades, our listener accolades are even better. So thanks to Joe and Linda. I appreciate it.
I figured you guys would take umbrage at that. Constantine, to his credit, it just spoke to me. He came on, and sometimes the nicknames just come out at me, like the Rock Lobster is pretty straightforward. Those they kind of come to me. They don't require a lot of inspiration. Sometimes that lightning just strikes. And with Constantine, that was definitely the case. So he shall be forever forth the Last Emperor. Even if that was his first and only appearance, that'll make it even more appropriate that he is the Last Emperor. Either way, that was a good one. We'll come up with something for you, Trey. It has to flow. It has to just hit me. When that moment hits me, I will let you know. But for now, so far, nothing is leaping out at me yet. If you have a suggestion, what do you think Trey's nickname should be on the show? Hit us up. Clearly, you're not shy about sending in questions for Trey and love for Trey. So by all means, keep it up. Rayman 5839. He says hi. Well, hi, Rayman 5839. He goes on to ask, is the option premium counted toward exercising an option when in the money? I'm new to options. Thanks. So yeah, this is an interesting one. We've talked before many times on this show and others. Pretty much any intro to options course will tell you this, that it is not a wise venture to exercise options early, in the exception of capturing a dividend. We talked about this kind of recently, actually, on the show. Let's do a refresher. Who wants to do a refresher for Rayman and the rest of the audience here on why you shouldn't exercise your options early? Raise your hands virtually here in our audio scenic soundscape. No one is raising. Oh, you laughed, Rock Lobster. I'll take that as raising your hand.
Does that mean I have to do it?
That means you have to do it.
So the reason you don't exercise your options early, the only reason you exercise a call early is for a dividend. And the only reason you exercise a put early is to get the short interest, which most of you can't get anyway because you don't have the margin to short the stock in a retail account. So there's almost no reason to exercise an option early. You just close it by selling it out. The exception might be the fact that the markets are wide and you're like, I don't want to sell it $1 below the bid. Screw that. I'll just exercise it. And I'll go on and sell the stock, on the following Monday. So as far as extrinsic value goes, remember, if you buy an option with extrinsic value and you exercise it, you lose all that value and you're going to be really grumpy. So that's what I have to say. I won't go into the synthetic equivalence part of it because we only have a few minutes left on the show.
Yep. If you're exercising early, remember, you're just selling your option effectively for parity. So he mentions extrinsic, intrinsic value. So all the extra juice, a.k.a. the premium, you're kind of just giving that away for nothing. So that's why it always behooves you 9 times out of 10, exception of the dividend and the short interest there, to always sell it versus exercising early. Trey, I'm sure you guys get this question a lot. Anything to add?
Yeah, I'll let Rayman not to be embarrassed. This is a question that comes up all the time. Here at Fidelity, we allow you to do nearly anything you want online on the website, and to exercise your option is one of the few things you have to call in early. So, we'll get the occasional calls. Why do I have to call in to do this? And the reason is just about this intrinsic and extrinsic value, right? You don't want to throw that money away in those circumstances. And, being that I get the calls often as I do, I know if we had that option online, probably a lot of people make that mistake without realizing it. So definitely comes up a lot for us, but I think Andrew answered it perfectly, though. Just wanted to add that point. Let Rayman know he's not alone with that one.
There you go, Rayman. Stand in solidarity with you. I like that. Fidelity putting a little bit of a safeguard there so you can't just hit the button and give up all that juicy premium. You have to call them up. And then guys like Trey will walk you through why you're leaving some money on the table if you were to opt to do just that. Here's a deceptively simple question that could also be extremely lengthy. This comes from Viserys. Isn't that a name from Game of Thrones? Maybe a Game of Thrones star writing into us. Saying, hello, OB. Well, hello, Viserys. Do you guys think there is one thing that all options traders do that is a mistake? All. Wow. Now you're getting all options traders. Huh. That's an interesting. I could think of mistakes that many options traders make. We've talked about many of them on the show. Hey, things like exercising early by accident, not knowing those things. Overselling puts, falling in love with that strategy without understanding the clear risks, not understanding the risk equivalency of a covered call versus a short put. Doing crazy ratio spreads instead of 1/2 or it's like 1/6 or 1/8, and not getting what it means to be short units and not having maybe another leg like a fly or things to protect those. These are just some of the many mistakes we see people make all the time. But all options traders. That is, I can't think of one off the top of my head that all options traders make. So I will broaden the question to the way I just answered as well. Make it a little bit easier for you guys. Can you think of a mistake that let's make it easier, most options traders make? And you can't list any of the ones I just listed. There we go. Made it harder for you. Let's start. I'm going to pick somebody if no one goes. So 3, 2.
All right. I'm going to say people don't have an exit strategy before they enter.
That's a good one. Spoken like a true educator. But
that's the most common one I've found.
But Andrew, they just want to sell the put. They don't need to think beyond that.
Well, technically, if you sell a put, the best strategy for selling a put is just sell it and then not think about it. That means you have the margin to do it. So that is actually that is one case, but you have pre-thought of your exit because you assume you're going to take delivery.
Well, I thought of another one while we were speaking, short puts, of course, which is the infamous one we talked about many times, selling a put for $1 or 35 cents or whatever and waiting for it to go all the way to zero, right? Not closing it out, especially when brokers like Fidelity and others let you close it out for no commission. You have zero incentive to keep that on beyond a nickel or a dime. Yeah, that's another one we see a lot. I don't know, Trey, Uncle Mike, any mistakes that a lot of people make that are resonating with you right now?
Yeah, I'd throw out one more, just failing to, have a good comprehension of option pricing. And this is especially true for the new option traders, right? Just kind of come in with that thought, hey, stock goes up, call price goes up, without having that full understanding of, how volatility, how time decay come in. You don't have to be, a math wizard, but you should at least understand those basic components. See a lot of traders skip that step along the way.
Then I would say one thing to add to it would be not knowing when ex-dividend date is. So for example, let's say that you are doing a diagonal spread, meaning that you're long a 6-month call, let's say, and then you sell a 1-month call against it, and the ex-dividend day is coming up, and then you see that call is a little bit in the money, and the company's paying a dividend, then all of a sudden you wake up one morning and you're short a bunch of shares of stock you had no intention of being short. And the worst part is that you end up paying the dividend because you're short the stock. So I think that's another key thing to where you need to have some type of awareness of that. If you're ever short or even near the money with short, if you're ever near the money with a short option, you need to be aware of any dividends the stock may pay.
All right, here's a good one to wrap up our mail palooza for this 800th episode. Spectacular. It comes from Big T. Big T wants to know, I've been listening to this show since the early days. Well, thank you, Big T. And I am incredibly thankful for the years of great content and education you have provided. I would like to show my support and gratitude in some way for all that you have done. Do you have a store or a Patreon or something that I could buy to say thanks for making such a great network? We get asked this a fair amount, and right now we don't. I know I promised a new iteration of theoptionsinsider.com back earlier this year. It's been delayed through forces. Let me just say, listeners, forces outside of my control. I wanted you to have a brand spanking new website much earlier than now, but here we are coming into Q2. We still don't have it ready. Hopefully, I'm hearing whispers it's going to be soon. But myriad forces outside of our control have delayed that. But that should hopefully include some maybe store functionality. What we're going to sell in there, I don't know. We're just going to build in the functionality. So that people always ask us, we go to conferences and events, they always want our logo, our shirts, our things. It's a pretty hot commodity there. We usually only give those out to contest winners and to people in the industry. You'll see a lot of, the C-suite, shall we say, of the big exchanges and brokerage firms rocking our shirts at various events because, quite frankly, they're pretty cool. We spend a lot on them. They're Land's End shirts. And the logo is pretty cool. So maybe we'll put some of those out there. It's for you guys to buy. It might be kind of fun. We don't have a Patreon. I'm not asking you guys I don't ask for donations. That's not our thing. Instead, we get the support of big firms so we can keep doing this for you guys for free, which is what we like. So we would encourage you to visit and support all of our sponsors like Fidelity's and all the other firms out here that support our network. Go to fidelity.com/options. And very importantly, tell them you heard about them from us. And that's a good way to thank us. And then also leaving reviews in whatever platform you listen this to on. It could be iTunes, could be Google Podcasts, however you get this show. Put a nice review in there. It helps other people. I mean, the show's been going for a long time. We have a nice, healthy audience, but it continues to grow all the time. But the more people we can attract, the more we can get into the option block and indeed the Options Insider Radio Network fold, the better it is for everybody. So bear that in mind as you're out there looking at it and listening to the show from your platform of choice. Leave a nice review if you haven't done so already. It helps new people discover the show. It's always nice to have a healthy flow of new people out there, and it helps for all those algorithm stuff out there. And we've talked. I know Mr. Rocklobster and I have talked offline a few times. I know he's keen to have some sort of premium type offering for you guys, and we haven't really nailed down how that would work or what we would do with it, but that's something we have out there in the ether. We're considering it. So there may be some premium shows coming at you down the road. Again, not going to take away from what you get here on the network for now. Nothing's going to change that. It's going to be above and beyond for people who want that. People who sound like Big T. If you want to go to that next level and go super crazy, and maybe you do want to tithe into the network, you've been listening for a while, we'll give you that option. But we're going to give you something for it. I'm not going to go out there and say, hey, donate to the network. That's not our style. Instead, we say, hey, we'll give you something awesome, and if you like it and you want to pay for it, there you go. So that would be what we have in store for those of you who are indeed so inclined to such things. Unfortunately, that music means we have come to the end of the 800th episode. Spectacular. It flew by. Just like 800 episodes flew by. I want to thank everybody like Big T and everybody else, Bitcoin VIX, everyone who's been with us since the early days, who continue to enjoy our content, who continue to enjoy not just this show, but all the shows we produce on the network. There's a lot of them. We keep you busy with content. Hopefully you guys enjoy that. So I want to thank all. We literally could not have been doing this this show since 2010 and the networks for the last 12 plus years if you guys weren't out there listening. So we tip our caps to you guys. If I was wearing one, I will tip it to you. I should have said do so metaphorically, because you guys are the reason we do this at the end of the day. Let's go back around the horn. Let's start with everybody. Let's start with Uncle Mike, who's been here since episode 1. Sir, if listeners are intrigued to talk to you about your story, all the way from Know Your Options Inc. now to St. Charles Wealth Management, little stop at a few places in between there, where should they go? What should they do?
It's been one heck of a story. One thing they can do is they can listen to the other 799 episodes, but if you don't care to do that, then feel free to contact me and reach out, and I'll tell you plenty of the story. Would love to talk with any of our listeners. I love talking to everyone that's ever called me through the show. Feel free to contact me. Reach out to my website at stcharleswealth.com for more information.
Click on the fun to hear his full life audio story. Check it out, stcharleswealth.com. One day he's going to make that Fox do something cool. I'm just looking forward to it. And then also out there, the guy who joined us, let's say 100 or so episodes in, we won't hold his tardiness against him. Mr. Rock Lobster, sir, any final thoughts on our 800th episode spectacular? And then B, if listeners are intrigued, they want to learn more about the land of the pit, where should they go? What should they do?
Well, of course, that means Tusa is 800 episodes old. So that means he's a very old man.
I am an old man.
Option Pit, what do we got going on? We have our Pro Trader Extravaganza in June. Surf on over to our website and click events. That's probably the latest, greatest thing we got going on. Also, we're getting out and about more to do speaking events. People that we do them, they like them, and we go. So if you have an investment club or anything like that, and you like to hear Mark or I speak at it, send me a note, Andrew at optionpit.com or Mark at optionpit.com. and we will actually travel and go talk to you about, well, what the heck, options. So give it a whirl.
There you go. I have heard good things about his talking them there options there. So check it out, optionpit.com if you haven't done so already. That's another thing, by the way, I mentioned, of course, supporting us and our sponsors, but support our contributors here on the show as well. Head down to optionpit.com. Give them a thanks by maybe signing up for the Pit Chat. Maybe come into the event in Chicago. That's a pretty fun one. I can testify to that. And, of course, head on over to St. Charles. Give Uncle Mike a call. Let him roll his puts for you so you can sleep easily. And, of course, head on over to fidelity.com/optionstrade. If they head on over there, sir, what are they going to find?
Yeah, they can learn a lot more about the options platform, some of the things that set us apart from the other brokers out there, such as working with my team as well. So check out fidelity.com/options. You can always give us a call, 877-907-4429. Just ask for the trading strategy desk. Feel free to ask for me as well, Trey Jarrell. I would love to talk to you about your option strategies.
There you go. Ask for Big Trey. How about that? We'll give him a short-term nickname. How does that sound? Big Trey. I've never seen you in person. I don't know how big you are, but it just sounds kind of fun. We'll use that as a placeholder nickname for now. Call up, say, hey, I want to talk to Big Trey. And hopefully they'll know who you're talking about. Fidelity.com/options is the place to go. Kick the tires, like the fires, the commissions, the tools, the platform, all that good stuff right there. Remember, if you're there, you click the tires, you open an account, tell them we sent you. That just makes all sorts of good things happen behind the scenes, which is always nice. And on behalf of Big Trey and the Rock Lobster and Uncle Mike, and indeed myself, who shall remain nicknameless, I want to thank all of you for downloading, streaming, subscribing, for joining us live for all these past 800 episodes. You guys have been downloading our stuff. I appreciate it. We love you guys. If you're listening live, stay tuned. We'll put a little fun stuff here in the live chat for you, and then we'll be back in about 25 minutes to talk some futures options. That'll be fun. And spoiler alert, you probably get some Tesla fun stuff in that in between as well. So listen for that. Otherwise, we'll see you back here next week for more of the Option Block.
The preceding program was a production of the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.